The meeting to order. I see we have all sorts of people join us, including our brand newly appointed member of City Council. Welcome, Cora. We're really glad to have you join us. I think I noticed in your report that you were also at other meetings at the same time. Are you at AUMA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So today's meeting, we have a few people who do need to be in and out, and I see we've got Diane Pichet joining us from the city, which is great. We've got Tracy McKinnon. Hello, Tracy. And we've got Judy joining us online. So present in the room, you can't see, we have Staff Sergeant Zenz here. We've got Commissioner Cam Henstone, Commissioner Elaine Willett Larson. I have to decide which one's first, Larson or Willett. I don't know why.
Willett is first.
Willett, excuse me. We've got Commissioner Sonia Dyksleg. We've got our Public Complaints Director, Brad Pears. We have our generously provided administrator, Jennifer Peterson from the city. And of course, we have Chief Bloomhagen, and then myself as chair of the commission. So a formal welcome, and we're again really pleased to have you join us on our commission. So meeting's called to order. We have an agenda in the agenda package. Is there anything on review of the agenda that needs to be amended or added?
4.2. We're going to had something come up, so she isn't able to join us. I can speak quickly on 4.2. We can divert the majority of that conversation to the December 16th.
Okay.
Chair on the adoption of the agenda as presented.
Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Any further discussion? All in favor? And so we've just been using show of hands video wise. All right, we will pass that as unanimous. So in our agenda, we do have, or in our package, the meeting minutes from October 21. Review anything that anyone saw that needs to be amended or adjusted. Elaine?
Chair, I'll move that we accept the minutes as printed.
Anyone else need more time on that? I'll take a show of hands in the affirmative if that's good. Good, thank you. Passed unanimously. All right, so we do have presentations today. Tracy, we're so glad to have you join us. I appreciate it. Could you give us, and we haven't seen you at the meeting before, would you just give us an idea of your role and what's going on with you in finance, I'm assuming, since you're presenting on budget?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Tracy McKinnon. I'm the Senior Manager of Financial Services with City of Lacombe. I started in May, so this is my first budget year. I came from the City of Red Deer, so I actually worked with the police department of the City of Red Deer, so I'm kind of familiar, and it's a place special in my heart with police. This is my first budget cycle, and we just finished it this week. So we have some minor adjustments to let you know that were made to the police budget that I can explain.
I'm drinking my breakfast. You have the floor, Tracy. Please proceed. We're happy to have you.
Sure, sounds good. So this week we finalized a lot of budget changes that needed some minor tweaking, and it mostly related to the benefits for salaries. We kind of put Lauren on the spot during our budget workshops because we had a really outlier increase for life insurance for police. It looked like it was appearing to increase a whole amount of 100,000 when that actually wasn't the case. So we've separated out in our budget the police WCB costs and the police life insurance costs. because the life insurance for police is 3 times the salary, which is slightly different from the other life insurance for City Lacombe employees. So the total cost of separating out that basic life insurance police is actually 21,000. And that was originally quoted as 100,000. So I want to apologize for our error. It was done correctly in our budget system, but for some reason it wasn't picking up the departments that shouldn't be included. So applied that to many departments, not just police. So, and the other WCB costs that we've broken out separately, which is not an increase, it's just to separate the cost of WCB for police, is 50,000. That is, we've put I understand it'll be a different safety audit, and that's why there'll be different WCB rates, and potentially you may get a rebate related specifically to police. So those are the 2 major budget changes. Other changes we've added are, we got a quote from AMA for insurance that it's going to go up by 10% this year. So we've gone back and adjusted all the insurance, and that would apply to fleet and everything. So there might be some minor adjustments in line items for police related to insurance. And we have a final LAPP for the municipal employees went down. So that was a good news story. So overall, the budget has changed a little bit from when you probably seen it last. The overall revenue increase is still 100,000 based on the increase in the CPO monitoring, the new grant for 911, 121,000, and other revenue increases of 3,100, offset by a decrease in the fine revenue of 65,000. So overall, from 2021 to 2022, revenue has gone up by 100,000, and the expenses have gone up by 6.6% or 341,000. And I'll just go over the major changes for that. Wages increased by 115,000 due to 2% police member increases, any step increases, market adjustments, short-term disability, which has also gone up overall, and life insurance, and the addition of a staff sergeant, which was an additional increase of 15,000. Benefits have increased by 70,000 total, and those are mainly that includes your life, disability, RSPs, WCB, unemployment, health plans, dental plans. That's your total net increase from last year, 70,000. Telephone and fax have increased by 8,400 due to cell phone replacements. Other professional services increased by $7,000, and 5,000 of that is for a new key performance indicator and strategic plan. Licenses and registrations have increased by 12,250. Upgrading and replacement of equipment has increased by 38,000 from 2021 due to replacement of 27 portable radios for AFREX at $1,500 each. And transfer to reserves has increased by 70,000. Now 40,000 of that a year is for the NG 911 system, and the remainder is an IT system transfer of 30,000 increase. Administration services recovery increased by $4,000. This is based on 3.95% of the total police expenditures, excluding any reserve transfers. And other net expenditures increased by 14,000. And I'm happy to take any questions you might have on the police budget or how we formulate it, working with Lauren.
I'll lead. I wouldn't mind actually getting a printout of our final budget. And I guess the second is, has it been approved?
No. So the next step in the budget process is it goes to council on Monday, November 22nd for deliberation. It'll depend on whether that gets resolved or approved on Monday, or the secondary date that it might come back if there's any changes in the budget, both capital or operating, would be December 6th. So I can send you, I'll send the updated report as of late last night to Lauren to pass on to you all.
All right, thank you. And I guess my other take back from this is that on the budget we'll see a little bit more definition or detail in the wage line so that we understand more closely where we're seeing our increases.
Absolutely. It gives a line by line comparison.
Any other questions for our chief financial officer?
Just want to see it.
Yeah.
That was a lot of numbers.
Yeah, so I think that we'll need to see it just to, it is hard to visualize the numbers as we go. But very much appreciated. And so it sounds like some fine tuning being done. I know for this year, it was difficult for us to even present the budget when the numbers were changing, and I can't imagine how hard it is at your end. So that's not a criticism. So I look forward to working with you throughout the year. And as usual, you're always welcome to attend our meetings. They're definitely public, but we're always interested in being able to talk to finance, you know, as we look at our budget. We don't always have questions, but we're definitely trying to keep close track of what we're doing. Sonia.
I just have one question. So you just went through everything that's up. Was there anything down? Like, I don't think you said anything that we've now under budget or under
You
budget.
know, the other net increases of 1,400, there are lots of little lines that were reallocated and moved around. So when you get the line by line detail, you'll see where if things weren't spent in 2021, maybe the budget was changed for 2022. It looked like the budget went through very detail orientated. And it's a combination of a bunch of different lines that make up that net $14,000 expenditure, but they're like $200 here, $300 here. So they're not worth going through all the details, but you'll see it on the report that I send right away.
All right, thank you.
And Tracy, I can print off a copy of the budget report for the commission, but it's all up to date as it sits today.
No more touches to it.
Okay. And then my second question on that was, that goes to council on the 22nd of November, correct?
That's correct.
So council will approve on the 22nd or send back, or will any adjustments being requested happen before the 22nd? If there are any.
There's no more changes until the 22nd. The reports are being prepared to go to council right now. They're finalized. So after the 22nd, if there were changes made that night or requests made that night, there might be changes before the December 6th meeting.
Okay.
But as far as our background calculations on benefits and salaries, we are completely done. We're going to leave it as is. We've got the best numbers we could at this point in time. We had some late adjustments that were made, but we just got the information last week. So
Great. So as far as the commission's concerned, we'll wait till the 22nd for information back from council on where we sit on the budget. Great.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. I know that you have other meetings that you need to attend to, Tracy, so you're welcome to stay or when you need to sign off.
thank you.
Other than you're going to present on the Q3 report as well?
Oh, you know what? I didn't bring that, but I didn't go through the details of that, Lauren. I apologize. Janice was working on that and I didn't look at it. But currently, if I recall, let me just take a quick peek. Currently, I think you have a slight deficit as of Q3. I can pass that information on to you. That will be going to council as well on Monday. But I didn't have time, my apologies, to go through the details of that.
And we have the Q3 report in our package to review.
Well, you've got the year-to-date budget actual,
Okay.
which it will be reflective of the Q3
Okay.
report. But you said we're looking at a slight deficit
Yeah,
Are
let
we
me just
not-
confirm that.
in our department.
Let me just confirm that.
Inspire has a deficit.
So just on the Q3 report, and Janice and I had discussion yesterday on that. As it sits today, there's about $300,000 missing revenues because the province hasn't cut the check for the police officer grant or the municipal police agency grant, which I believe is 300,000. It could be higher than that, but on that line on the budget actual, we're showing about 300,000 deficit. However, I got a hold of the assistant deputy minister yesterday, who had conversations this week with the solicitor general, and those checks are being cut. There isn't any change to those funds. It's just a matter of getting them into our general accounts or receiving the check at the end of the day. So we're hoping that check arrives before the end of the year, but the money is being allocated as it has in previous years. So once those revenues are received, be in a better position, but that won't be reflected in the Q3 report.
Can I confirm whether you can see the variance report online?
Yep.
Okay. So as Lauren suggested, there is a shortfall in revenue. The budget is 1.3, and currently we only have 873,000. So there is a shortfall in revenue based on the timing differences of when the grants have been received. So and of course, fine revenue would be another shortfall. And then on the expense side, it's currently in a surplus position. So your year-to-date budget as of the end of September is 3.9 million. And currently you've spent 3.6 million. A large portion of that savings is in the salary line. So there's a $300,000 savings in salary, and I believe that is due to vacancies or short-term disability.
And so then that's something the chief has been paying attention to as well, strategically, to try to make sure that our budget ends up as balanced as possible, so that we're not looking at a deficit at the end of the year. So what I'm seeing from the revenues, that there's actually $34,000 from the county as well that hasn't come through, so that we're really looking more at our fine revenues, which was anticipated as being our major source of deficit in our budget.
And that will remain until the end of the year. So
Yeah.
all the other lines should be fairly close to being on budget. But the fine revenues, we know that we are probably going to be at least $200,000 behind on at the end of the year.
And we've anticipated that then for next year's budget as well, just continuing to reduce our fine revenue expectation based on reality. Any questions on this, just as you have a chance to process? So maybe we can get a copy of this as well.
You betcha.
No?
Well, yeah, because this, Trace brought it up today, it changes daily.
We've got our actual, I guess that one's just pretty.
Yes.
It's easier to read than the rest of it. The quick summary, we've got detail. You're right with the detail. All right, anything further than Chief? Any other questions arising? Excellent. Very happy to have you here, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
Nice to be here. Sorry I wasn't very organized.
We all have that. All right, well, we'll move on to our agenda. We've got the next report that we were going to have, and it was a late add-on onto your package as well that came, was that Brenda Vaughn had managed to get a draft to us for the KPI strategic plan draft. And we were hoping to get that draft at least to get us started as a commission today, because it's something that we need to get implemented or have a good process for the end of the year. Chief, I'll let you do the summary then, just on what you saw.
Great. Yeah, and Brenda's apologies, she just had a last minute change, so I'm going to give you a real basic overview of what's going on because Brenda is definitely more capable and qualified to explain it in detail. But as you're already aware, moving through the KPI process, it will help us develop and draft our next strategic plan 2022 to 2024. Keeping that in mind, Brenda has identified 6 KPIs throughout this document, and then I highlighted a number of areas. So this is still a work in progress, a draft. So Brenda's put in some of her thoughts. There's a little bit of some areas that will leave some questions. But what we'd like the commission to do is take this document, read it over, and then for the December meeting, if you can come back with any areas that you think should be changed. We've identified priorities in this document based on our previous strategic plans, our provincial standards audit priorities, and then some of our reporting capabilities. So not much has changed from what our primary goals are. However, how we measure our performance will change moving forward. So everybody can go through this document, come back with recommended changes, then we can move into the next step of drafting our strategic plan. And a question for Cora. Do you know when the city is going to be developing their next strategic plan? I believe that's early in the new year. Is that correct?
No, it's the December 3rd and 4th. We are
Okay.
working on it. So, I mean,
So-
that's when the workshop is, Lauren, but yeah, that's.
Great. So knowing those timelines, one of the things that's identified in this document and that's important for our strategic plan is we want to make sure that it's in line with the city's strategic plan and any priorities they've set or where we fit into those priorities. So we'll try and work in alignment with that as well. Some of the areas will be specific to our plan as usual, but we still want to be in alignment with the city's plan as well. So it will be a work in progress, probably into the new year a little bit, but everything's moving ahead quite well. Some of the areas when Brenda outlines measurables and statistics that may be required. We are most likely already collecting those statistics. It's all, we build them into our annual reporting. And so we don't feel that we'll have any problem with any of the areas as far as capturing the statistics. Brian is overseeing the provincial standards audit. We're not due for another one of those for a couple of years, but all of this will fall in alignment with that process as well. So as we build this plan and build the KPI and reporting procedures for that, Brian will be tasked with a lot of that work in coordinating or reporting on the statistics so we can do our annual reporting and assessment on our strat plan. Some of the items that Brenda has in here talking about whistle cessation, review of safe speed limits. Those were items that were previous significant topics for the city. Those.
You know, when I
more
saw that,
sound,
Lauren,
yeah.
I think what I'm looking at that when, and Cora, this is for you for when you go to your strategy, is it looks like the city kind of came up with things that, what do we think is important in policing? And they've probably been there for 10 years and haven't been updated. But I think that our plan will actually make it a lot easier for the city to set up something more significant in their plan that actually is relatable. So I think that Brenda's connection here in this process actually looks pretty geekily exciting, actually, the way that it'll work.
And those are used examples from the past, so definitely that's where that communication collaboration from the commission as a whole and council and potentially our next community survey can identify some of those mutual areas of focus.
Question, Chair Gish. I'm going through my binder, and do we all have a copy of what Brenda has produced so far somewhere?
Just the package that was sent out just, I think, on Monday. There was
Oh,
a stuff
right. Okay,
sent out.
different. Yeah.
Definitely in very draft form, but I think when you go in, and hopefully taking this with you will help you connect
Right.
into cities.
Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Chief.
Nope, I was pretty much done. Other than when we look at the performance targets as well, Brenda's attached some percentages. Those will probably be changed a little bit. I think she just took exactly what we achieved in the last, say, citizen satisfaction survey and use that as our target, but I don't know if we want to attach a target number to a single survey. It might be the average over the last 5 or 10 years, or and in other areas she's put 100% compliance, which may be appropriate under the particular item, but for your consideration as you're going through there, maybe put some thought into whether those targets are reasonable and that's your expectations moving forward. So outside of that, I think there's been a lot of good work done so far, and moving this to a final product will, I don't think it'll be a big task for us.
So just my thought, just to add on to this, we did have maybe if Councillor Hoekstra could get that initial presentation as well from Brenda Vaughn that just talked about KPI we had, I think this summer, or was it, I can't even remember what month, September, I think it was, just that she'd given us a fairly dense package of this is what KPI means, this is the kinds of things we'd be looking at. If for our commission, as you're reading this one, it's a lot easier to read than the first one. But what I kind of saw is it's similar to what we have in our strategic plan in the sense that we have our overarching goal of being excellent in policing. And then under that goal, we've got 6 categories, which are her measures, which are quite similar to the measures that we do have in our strategic plan as well. And then under the measures, for each measure, there's targets. And so that as you're reading it and you're just looking for ideas to process it, take a look at each of our strategic goals as well, just to blend them in, just to help you with some ideas. But I think at the end of it, it's going to look, I think it's going to be a really excellent product that takes our existing process and just improves it.
And also it's going to be, in my view, a valuable tool for city council as well, because city council's responsibility is to basically set service levels for policing for the city. So this document will assist them in identifying that service level, and then we can interpret that and apply it operationally and through our application and distribution of the budget, which I think will be better overall, and there will be there'll be more clarity for everybody involved in the oversight of policing as we move forward. So I'm also nervously excited about this, and there's KPI projects for other city departments being developed, but I think we're going to be taking the lead on this. And Diane might have something to add on how our KPI plan works into some of the others, but I just see it as added value, even the interconnectivity between us and other city departments, if we align our strategic goals over the next few years.
Thank you, Chief Bloomhagen. Yes, as we are moving forward towards getting our strategic planning completed with council, that is what's going to help us determine where the city's KPIs are going to fall into place, and that's what we will end up focusing on. So, of course, you using your KPIs in correlation with that will definitely be advantageous.
Any thoughts or questions at this point? It's a lot to process with Shornos. Yes, Elaine, please.
One jesting thought. I think I heard the chair use the term geek. And
Yes.
the chief used the term nerd. Within 10 minutes of each other. So
Well,
I'm thinking you must really enjoy Brenda's work.
it is a little bit embarrassingly exciting, actually. I don't know why.
Well, what's funny is I understand the concept, but I don't understand definitely how she puts it all together or connects the dots. So I value and appreciate it all. But yeah, typically I'm not one to really get into more technical documents. Be excited about them, but for this,
But you had fun.
So, yeah.
Okay, so all sorts of fun coming up. Our new counselor and our 2 new commissioners that will join us in January will just be overwhelmed with all of the fun and entertainment that we have to offer. Okay, we've got presentations completed. Then at this point, we'll move into our report section. So at this stage, we do have the chief's report in the package, and generally we have the chief just hit the highlights and leave that open for questions.
And we've already been through the budget, so I won't focus on that. Professional standards, no public complaints. I know Brad has had a number of inquiries on various things, so we have been communicating, but no formal new complaints have come out of those conversations as of yet. Complaint that came in September. Complainant is going through other court procedures, so we have done a use of force review on that incident, but we're holding it somewhat in abeyance and providing the complainant with 45-day updates as per our requirements under the Police Service Regulations and Police Act. So we may have some finality to that by December's meeting. But if the court process on the other side takes longer, then that will delay our process on the police service regulations. So a lot of the points around the complaint are making allegations around human rights type violations, which will actually be dealt with through the other courts if any of those violations are noted or upheld. Then the courts would deal with them accordingly, but then we could also rely on the information coming from courts on whether or not those breaches actually occurred from a legal standpoint. If they didn't, then basically the complaint wouldn't be substantiated whatsoever. So we will wait for the other processes. As far as training goes, we have not had a lot of training, but a little bit for the Just Transformation Initiative. That's for the new provincial ticketing mechanism that is now set to start in February. It was originally scheduled for December, but we are in good position to move forward with that when they do implement. However, we have also I think we're under budget substantially on training, but we identified a leadership course through the Canadian Police Knowledge Network. And it is a 60-hour leadership training course. So we have actually signed up all our sergeants and TA sergeants for that training. It's about $3,500, $500 per person for that. But it's one of those leadership trainings that we've been trying to access for quite some time. So jumped on the opportunity, had the money to move forward with getting multiple members trained. So everybody has been given a diary date to have that training completed by early January, but they are starting as we speak. So that's actually exciting news for us. In October, we did also recertify all the members that aren't on leaves on firearms. So everybody has done their qualification shoots and carry their firearms for another year. And then we are just now identifying other training opportunities that will hopefully be accessible in early in January, but we're starting to align a number of members with various training courses, and all goes well. We'll get caught up, but we are definitely behind the 8 ball in training because the last 2-year pandemic, but we'll do everything we can to get caught up to where we feel we should be. As far as our fleet goes, did get our unmarked unit back. It's equipped, operational. And may or may not look like Cherokee vehicle.
Try to see one yet?
No, not that one. It hasn't made it to the courthouse to be targeted. Our dispatch console was upgraded, so that was $70,000 cost transferred from our operational reserves. That still leaves us with about $150,000 in our operational reserves. So, so we're sitting well there, and the system is working very well. Other than this morning, the console went black, but I believe they fixed that problem already. With some of the systems this week, I think Bell systems went down across the province. We're heavily tied into Bell as a service provider, but I believe all of those issues, none of them cost us any dollars, but operationally we did have a few hiccups. Human resources, I can do an in-camera update later. Just a couple of items from my leadership activities. I think I reported last month, but we did, for October, we did swear in Constable Walnut, Constable Hartley. We will try moving forward now that we're getting together in person to bring members in to introduce them to the commission. As per Commissioner Dixling's request, and quite frankly, because of COVID, it's just been hard to do those in-person type introductions and whatnot. So we will try and get our new members through these meetings just for introductions. We're also rolling out a new cop card program. So actually the flags and stuff that are set up in here Monday, today, and a day next week. We're just getting photos for cop cards, and we're also updating our cards for ID, or photos for IDs. So once we get all the cop cards done, provide you with the whole page, faces to names on a daily basis. Also, by last meeting, you were aware that Constable Gerard resigned and moved to other ventures in BC. Resourcing wise, yes, we have the one vacancy, and Sergeant Zenz is actively reviewing applications and going through the hiring process. And hopefully by December, we'll have a pretty good idea of which way we're going. To access any new training, we wouldn't be able to put a new member through training until March of next year. Would be our only ability to train, whether that was through Edmonton, Calgary, or Lethbridge is holding a recruit training course. So there's a strong likelihood that we will not fill that position before March, unless we get an experience. One other area of interest, and I believe, sorry, didn't fall on the agenda. There was a number of announcements that came out in regards to the Alberta Provincial Police Service. I was invited to a meeting with the Solicitor General's Department on the Price Waterhouse results of their work on the Provincial Police Service Initiative. And there's a number of points came from that. You might have seen the release. I think we sent out just the video of the minister's news announcement on that. There's a few other studies in relation to that initiative as well, but I think the highlights for the commission would be this should not have any effect on any of the current 7 municipal police agencies in the province. As far as governance, some of the governance models they're looking at for the provincial police force, if it comes into fruition, is that they will have a provincial police commission and then regional boards off that commission. But all of the current municipal police commissions and police services will basically be unaffected. As the Police Act reform or review is completed, there may be changes that come out of that document, but in this specific to the provincial police force, shouldn't change any funding or structure or oversight for current municipal police services. Having said that, moving forward, the province will be engaging commissions, municipalities, police services, and they've already begun this in consultation for the transition process. And then if we were to move into a new provincial police service model, there would probably be other peripheral requests for either integrated services or providing services in areas such as dispatch, or much like we're doing with our CPO counterparts already. So there may be services we can provide that we could contract out, and potential revenue opportunities for us, or sharing of resources that we don't currently have. So what that looks like, it's hard to say, but there will definitely be people looking at different ways of doing business across the province.
So, Chief, with the proposal, would there be an opportunity to expand the patrol area too and make Lacombe Police Services more of a regional? Like maybe take on spitballing things out here, like Black Hawk Drive, Bentley, like expand the service area? And essentially,
So looking at regional models, those are going to be political decisions at the end of the day. But yes, there are many municipalities that are have contracted services with the RCMP that have to look at how they're going to police their municipalities. The boundaries, there's potential for regionalization out to rural areas. There's models being developed as we speak in around the larger municipalities in the province. So we haven't been asked or got into any discussions on that, but those types of models will be supported and potentially encouraged. We just don't know what that looks like. I've been asked to sit on some working groups for the province, and actually I've assigned Brian to one of the working groups. There's actually 6 working groups. One under the basically under operations, one under corporate services, and the one Brian will be sitting on is in regards to the training, because the recruit and selection, he's involved in the committee, and that's standardized throughout the province. So he knows that realm and can provide good insight as to how that works within our organization, and could work for others. There's also some areas around specialized services that we will consult on if they ask us, but we're going to sit on these committees, on all of the committees, because it's going to be about a 2-hour commitment per committee per month. So if we sat on all of them, it's about 24 hours a month just to do that committee work. So we're not going to make that big of a commitment. And then I'm going to sit on the corporate side, on the human resources side, and then advise on 2 technical areas, and that's one of them is dealing with the communication systems, because with our experience with the AFRAX radio systems and also providing services to the CPO agencies, they want to know our experience and have some knowledge that we can share in those areas that might assist. And then also in the records management system. We'd be looking at going to a province-wide records management system that was built at one time and then the province abandoned it, but it's still in existence, and what that would look like. And us being in a PROS RCMP environment, we're already using a shared records management system, but the province would basically build their own, and everybody in the province would be on, whether you're in Edmonton, Calgary, Provincial Police or Lacombe Police Service. We'll continue the discussions around those areas, but the timeframes for that, the consultative stage will start fairly soon, and the whole administrative process would take 2 to 4 years, and then the implementation stage would be another 2 years afterwards. So the province, if this moves forward, is looking at between 5 to 6 years of this going from consultation to implementation. And Cora, is this item on your agenda at AUMA? I suspect it might be.
Provincial policing, like, or
Yes.
just the changes? I have not seen a session about it, no.
Okay.
But it might,
figured
I should back up. Sorry, Chief Bloomhagen. I have to review the resolutions for this afternoon, and maybe it is one of those. I can get back to you on that.
That'd be great. And yeah, I suspect it's going to show up in discussions or a presentation somewhere for the AUMA, but it may not make this meeting. It might be a future one. Anything you hear would be interesting, because it's a very interesting topic overall, just the transition. And actually, as Alberta moves forward with this, Saskatchewan's looking at it, or Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, so other provinces are also kind of watching as Alberta moves forward on this.
That was gonna be my question to Cora. I would imagine as mayors of some cities, we'd be having like, ooh, like this is big changes coming,
Absolutely.
massive changes. And for us, we just kind of maybe sit back a little bit and say, hey, we've got some expertise to share. We've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, and that's what I see coming of it, is a lot of questions coming to commissions, a lot of questions coming to the municipal police services. There's going to be a lot of discussion, so
I did.
important.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but I did have that question informally last night. As you all know, that there's lots of informal things that go on too at AUMA, particularly from Sylvan Lake. They said, you know, what kind of information can you share with us? And then their mayor is new, and she said, how long have you had police in Lacombe? And, you know, 100 years. And then she's like, wow. So yeah, people are going to be for sure much more pointed about asking their questions about what we do, how we do it. Yeah.
And the conversation has been out there for a number of years now. So this is just going to open those doors that people are going to talk about it definitely more openly in a number of different forums. I think it's an important one for the commission to be monitoring and aware of.
I apologize, I had to step out for an interview at the end.
All right, have fun. Questions on chief's report? There's lots in there. The policing is definitely the prevention, something that we're going to be keeping an eye on, and I really want to commend the chief for making sure that our service is being represented on the provincial boards and the discussions, because it keeps us in the loop and ready to pounce on opportunities to the advantage of our community. That sounded a little aggressive, but it is. It's about how can we help, but also how can we make sure that we're on top of our game. I did have a question myself. Just you were talking about the installation of the new console, and I know that just throughout the process of the last year, we've been improving our IT consultation and service. Were they heavily involved in that, Chief?
Yeah, they were. And actually that relationship is better. I wouldn't say it's perfect yet. We're still waiting to get our three half days a week the person in that chair, but actually part of this is slight on IT at all. Like I say, many things are moving forward much smoother than they were before, but Diane and CAO Gowdy and myself still have to have a meeting to finalize that IT service agreement. I did make some last minute changes here recently, but between elections and budget and those types of things, quite frankly, we just didn't get to it. So Diane, expect an email. I was going to do that. Diane just got back today from a couple days, well-deserved days off. And then the CAO has been extremely busy as well. So we will get that finalized, but it isn't interrupting service per se.
Any other questions for the chief on chief's report?
Who sits on the city COVID coordination team? When you meet, you met twice. Who sits on that?
So the city COVID coordination team was basically under the emergency management model.
Okay.
So it's any disaster per se. That COVID coordination team is the same as your basically emergency operations center representatives in any disaster. So that consists of the CAO, Director Keith Shea, the fire chief, myself, the director of FCSS for the social services disaster management programs. Jen as our administrative assistant, and actually Jen does a lot of the disaster planning side of her many responsibilities. Who else is on it? And then,
I was curious, because
Yeah.
I wonder why we don't have a, Wolf Creek representative in those meetings. Like, and maybe, you know, I
because
was-
of as far as pandemic goes, managing the pandemic for the city is the city,
but the emergency part.
but
of
we
it,
have consulted, so
Right,
the ability for that board to bring in whoever, depending on the topic, the
Right.
nature. Wolf Creek, I would hope would have a group like this,
I would think.
As their
that
own
would be very
entity,
Essential.
and then as we, depending on which direction it goes, so if there was an issue specific to the schools, that we would engage somebody from the schools. We have representation on occasion directly from Alberta Health Services. We have our contact.
Okay,
Our contact isn't at every meeting, but we do engage them.
This is
We
more
have engaged
curiosity.
Wolf Creek, and we have engaged even people from different seniors lodges or homes. It looks
well, I
like,
think FCSS could cover that piece of that puzzle off. In some regards, but
Well,
yeah, anyways, it was
yeah.
just more of a
So-
curiosity thing, it can be a
Yeah.
sidetrack conversation sometimes, but just you're meeting twice in a month, and like, what are you still meeting about?
well, and quite frankly, the last few meetings have been about 15-minute meetings.
Okay, gotcha.
So what it does is it ensures that we schedule and we're talking all the time, because
Yeah.
when the province rolls out with something,
Mhm.
we
Like, it
we
was
have
exemption program,
pivot quickly and
because, yeah, there could be
deal
issues
with
at
that.
places with, you know, just compliance with that, how will the police support compliance with the exemption program, or whatever it is, right?
And also consistency of information, so even as far as enforcement of different things, but we also, Jen provides us with the current numbers of cases for the province, but specific to the city. So we all are getting the same information. And
Interesting.
just like when you watch the news every night, you have 100 questions on the changes.
Yeah.
This group can discuss those things as well, so that we're all on the same page. So, and it's just basically following those disaster management best practices. And we were very active at the start of it, because we were developing policies and procedures for all departments.
Yeah.
And now it's more,
Updates.
we meet, get the updates when
Yeah.
there's a bigger change that comes down from the province, then the meeting might last a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough, thank you.
How are you doing for time?
Oh, have lots of time.
Okay.
Have stuff to do. Nothing for.
Then we'll go on, just our next item on reports is SRO report. I really liked the report this session, so
Yeah, she did a nice job.
obviously Constable Wilzer is really engaging in this position, and so I found the report to be really quite enlightening.
It's very well written.
Highlights on that you want to point out at all, Chief? But
Constable Wilson was a teacher, you know that, right?
oh no, I didn't know
She was
that.
she has educate, she went into education to begin with, I think, and then came into policing after that. I'm pretty sure she was in education. You don't think so? Maybe she started her degree in education
Hmm.
and then moved into policing.
Less news to me, but it could be,
Quite
it could be
certain of
true.
that. Yeah,
Uh,
at least two years in education before she moved into doing policing, pretty sure. Anyways,
all right.
when I read her report, it sounded very teacherish to me. Sounded like a report that a teacher would write.
And she does enjoy that environment, I think.
We'll have to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure she told me she was went into education, that's where she started her university degree. And then I don't know if she finished it or not. Anyways.
Find out.
Mhm.
Well, I could, Chair.
Yes, please.
Chief, I could attempt to confirm that, because I assume that it'd be the school resource officer that would be contacted to do school presentations, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I would like to have her come in and do a presentation on the Criminal Justice Act.
Mhm.
So I'll ask her.
Yeah.
Presentation at the school or with that? Yeah, oh, she'll do presentations at
Yeah.
the school. She's doing lots.
And they can either go through the school administrator or direct, if you see her, and just make the arrangements.
Or
And
probably just
she's
call.
very flexible.
Called here and left a message,
Sure.
because, or Is there?
Her
number
emails,
of email?
her email's the
Yeah.
best, the city email, not the Wolf Creek email, her city email's the best way to get hold of her.
She has, she's set up with Wolf Creek.
Yeah, she doesn't look at it often. None of the members
That's what
look
I-
at it often. It's just another place to look. So for us and all of us administrators, we just email her because she looks at that hourly, right? So.
And the process, the process
Mhm.
internally, it was set up, it just.
Yeah.
Was more on the pitches and pitches.
Yeah, she's great with the kids, Elaine, and yeah, she'll do an awesome presentation.
But she's enjoying it, and yeah, she's organizing the cop carts, so that's great. So, those,
The hedgehog part is pretty hilarious, and pretty cute, not gonna lie.
But you know, she got a major flack on that, hey?
Really?
So she posted, Tara's Ridge reposted a picture of her with the hedgehog, and she's abusing hedgehogs now. And what it is, it's a food coloring, like it's a powder, right? So she's not, yeah. So she just, politely texted that person back and said, no, this is what I'm doing. We're not abusing hedgehogs. We're just, having something to promote and have conversation with the kids. So she came and did all of our grade 4 classrooms with Sonic.
That's fine. That's awesome.
yeah, it's a hit overall, and once it hits social media,
So
if you don't get at least one negative comment or.
Yeah, you're not
yeah,
successful. People are, people.
All right, any thoughts or comments, questions on SRO? Then I keep sliding back and forth on my agenda here. My report is next. I had a very light month. Oh, no, yours is there, Brad. You're a public complaint director. You are ahead of me in the order.
There you go.
Fantastic.
Nice when that happens.
A lot to report as usual. There is an ongoing complaint still from a month or 2 years ago, September, I think. That is ongoing. But that has been really conversations with me, although I did get lots of these emails. In October, there were a handful of phone calls, but nothing ended up being a complaint. People are eager to call, but when I ask them to write it down, don't think it's really.
And the member that's subject of that complaint is still, will be off until probably the new year with the injuries sustained during that event.
Hopefully that, you said it would be resolved, you think, in the new year?
It depends on the criminal court process.
Yes.
So with that one, the complainant is trying to drive the process, so we get lots of correspondence. We're going to change the process.
I did have one other complaint that I emailed you about last month that we talked on the phone about. But he did not reply to me over many attempts. So it was frivolous. I've decided it was frivolous because he won't.
Well, we won't put it in.
Okay, so you're satisfied we're in compliance with the rules for public complaints, so.
Right.
Elaine, you had a question, please.
So I have just listened to you for about a year and a half now. And do you find that a lot of people that once they complain to you, they have aired what it was that was bothering them? And then
100%.
they just don't bother to make a formal
Absolutely.
complaint because they've got it, they've aired it and they're done.
Most people just want to be heard. Like, not all, some people are,
Well, yes, we
Awful.
have obvious examples, but
but most people that they call after I complain, actually, I don't know if it's even that, it's me calling them back. And then they feel validated, they feel important, and then they put it to rest. And it's not, because usually there's something that people are wrong when they get stopped by police most of the time. And they don't. So they feel vindicated. I think that's at least half the process, I'm sure, probably more.
So then what are the parameters for whether the complaint needs to be, I mean, obviously, if they don't put it in writing, you can't process it properly. But at some point in time, you need to encourage them to put it in writing if it meets some parameters.
Yeah.
And so then what are those parameters?
Usually I defer to Laura.
Well, actually,
Yeah. Because some of it is very obvious, but some of it's gray for me. So I tell people that it has to be an actual complaint. You just can't ignore it. That's important. And I don't speak of them in anything other than like layman's English, because and I let them drive the conversation. But I'm pretty clear that if they just want to vent and let them, if they want to actually complain, while they're going to meet and they need to break down and sign it.
Okay.
The actual process, if they put it in on paper, they have to accept the complaint. So Brad would forward that to me. Then I would assess it, and there's timelines, so we have to acknowledge receipt of the complaint within 14 days, and then provide 45-day updates. There's no definitive end date, but usually we resolve a week before 14-day notification of receipt is there. And once it comes to me, I have to identify does it qualify for a complaint under the Police Act? Was there a statutory breach by the member, or was there a offense under the Police Service Regulations or Police Act? If they don't meet that criteria and they're just, I don't like the way they dressed her, or then it can be, they don't have to accept the complaint, but if I want to write it off as frivolous and vexatious, then I would bring it to the commission to dispose of it that way. And then of course they have their ability to appeal in any direction it goes to the law enforcement review. One of the big things for the public complaints director is it can be that initial sounding board, so you can avoid a lot of complaints just by having people vet somebody. But also anytime in the process, if there's the ability to successfully mediate a complaint, and the complainant is satisfied, then the public complaints director can assist in that mediation process as well. And we've only done a couple of those over the years, but it's very valuable when it happens, because PCD self complainant involved named officer be involved in that mediation process, and then at the end of that process, the complaint can be it's formally withdrawn by the complainant because satisfied in addressing.
That happens quite often before it gets to.
Right, and that's.
I think that's important, but otherwise you would be spending so much time talking.
So here's my thought, just from the commission's point of view, is of course statutorily we need to be in compliance on public complaints. But if our job is also to represent the community, then it's also interesting to maybe have some feedback on how discretion is being used, so that I always find that process a little curious, that the complaint goes into Brad, who talks to the chief, rather than it being even brought to us. And it's not like we want to deal with all the nitty-gritty details, but it's just an interesting process. And I think that we've got some modifications coming provincially to the public complaints department. So our commission hasn't spent a lot of time on it, but it just seems like if we're supposed to be canvassing the community, we've got our formal community survey once every 3 years type of thing, is this an opportunity that we're missing to understand how the service that we are hiring the chief to run is being perceived in the community?
Well, and in the KPI, that stood out to me. It's 3 bullets. Reduce number of public complaints per year. Well, we don't have a lot. So how do we get better on that? Reduce, and then it's again, percentage of complaints are reduced or sustained, and then something else on complaints in here. And I don't think complaints are a bad thing. I think complaints are actually a good thing. It helps the service. So when that's a KPI performance measure, I don't like it at all in there, because complaints not necessarily mean we're doing a poor job. It means we have a process that allows for our community to communicate with us. And like the wording of that, I'd like to see changed, that there's a complaint process that is satisfactory to the community, or we monitor the frequency and, types of complaints so that we can improve our performance, right? So I don't know how we hardly have any complaints, and how do you improve on that?
I agree with you that it feels like to not get complaints means that we just make access harder and harder
That's right.
and harder, that we should almost be seeking to have feedback. So complaints or positive feedback, we should almost be measuring as we should be trying for more rather than less. And, it's something for discussion when we're looking at KPIs. So,
But I think continuing this conversation into our discussion on 6.1, part of reason for 6.1 being on our agenda, being able to differentiate between offenses under the Police Act and disciplinary items, and disciplining or dealing with performance issues. There has to be a bit of separation, but those waters get muddied within the Police Act and within the processes that we currently have, and it becomes difficult to, if it's performance and we can deal with it, our discretionary powers or administrative abilities, that's where it needs to be. We don't need to turn a performance issue into a disciplinary issue where now we're trying to find a offense that fits under the Police Act and criminalize behaviors that are really performance behaviors. That somebody's
Well,
trying
complaints are cyclical too, with what's happening in your community and in your province and finances. And I mean, Elaine and I know from complaints on teachers are skyrocketing right now. And there's a reason for that. And we can look at the research and the data behind why there's more complaints. Also at my school, I'd rather hear than not hear. Parents that fester and stew are the ones that I worry about more than the one that calls me with a complaint. I prefer the call so that we can have that conversation, allow them to vent, those sorts of things. And I think, like I say, complaints are not always a bad thing.
No.
It's an insight, it's conduit to seeing what's going on in your community, right? So
Creates openness and transparency.
exactly.
And then people feel
Empowered, yeah, listened to.
And not only that, they're also engaged.
Right.
I can't think of how many, but very few calls that I've had in the last 2 years have been about the Police Act. Everything is really subjective, mostly how was I spoken to? Something was inappropriate, which, when after a conversation, people, they don't admit it, but they know that there's a reason they're acting with police.
I think you hit the nail on the head, though. Sounds like most of your phone calls are hurt feelings.
Yeah.
Essentially, which
which is important though,
Which
too,
is good
because
too,
if,
yeah.
if we're supposed to be a community policing service, how the officers are perceived within the community is a really big deal. So if you've got an officer who's getting general complaints a lot, it's a function. And so that's kind of where the chief is saying, once we get to 6.1, all of a sudden this conversation kind of circles to the powers that the commission needs to have to help deal with making sure our community is being well serviced by the personalities and stuff.
And many of the complaints, I know Brad has a recent email on this. People are assuming that the police can look after all of their issues.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have family court issues that
Yeah.
you get complaints that members are neglecting their duties because they aren't dealing with my child custody issue. And the family courts, we deal with that a lot. So keep coming to us with their civil court issues or family court issues, and we're saying as police service, that's outside of our jurisdiction.
Or just they're really long.
And so, but they keep coming back to us, and to have that second party to say, boy, that's outside of the police's
But it's good
area of
information. for us,
responsibility.
because again, that's education.
Right.
So we need to educate
Yep.
our citizens to understand the difference in
Right.
roles, right? So, yeah.
And when Brad recently got this is a follow-up of information from Brad. So the member that this person's complaining about on a family court matter, and we've been advising for years on, this member between Friday last week and Monday received 70 emails with the same request. And we probably advised this person a couple of hundred times of the course of action they need to take. And it's very simple. Some individuals aren't,
mental health issue.
so now our approach on that, Brian and I were discussing this morning, is we need to make a mental health referral
Yeah.
on this individual and use other.
And have them use that as their support.
Yeah. So sometimes it does help us align with other services, but the police are the clearing house for every issue out there.
Which goes back to the KPI on diversion, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look at us, we're all just circling into effective service here. Okay, mine is next report. I had a pretty slow month. I met with the chair on Friday. And we
You're
quickly
the
went
chair.
through. Oh, I'm the chair. All right. Okay, well, I put myself on an hourly basis.
I'm glad.
She has a new mirror.
Here on the wall, who's the best chair of all?
Who's going on vacation?
Yeah, I'm
right
just
after
going on
this meeting?
vacation as soon as the meeting's over. Okay, vice chair report. Judy, are you? Hello, Judy. How's the
Hello.
volume today? Is it better?
Yeah, it is much better and very clear, actually. I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Good.
I don't have a lot to report, just ongoing communication with Jennifer. We've been trying to get things lined up for her for my last meeting in December. So just forwarding some stuff to her, but I did mention to her that unfortunately, I had a really good spreadsheet. Our computer crashed months ago, and to replace it is a little bit harder with the shortage of chips, as my husband does make his own, build his own computer. So that said, I'm trying to find some previous emails. I'm hoping maybe even Sonia might be able to help me. I am trying to find emails of previous ones that I sent with the spreadsheet, asking the commissioners to look at the spreadsheet and get back to me if there was anything that was changed on it.
I'm sure I have a copy somewhere just in an agenda, so we can at least retype the spreadsheet, because it was a really nicely done spreadsheet, just to keep us.
I can look back.
Ross probably has it somewhere, Jen.
Yeah, I
So-
think somebody has a copy of the email that has electronic copy of the actual, and then I'll pass the information to the apparel, because we have new commissioners joining for clothing, so.
Perfect. Thank you, Judy. I just clicked away from my agenda. What's next on the agenda?
Judy, or Chief, where are we at with ride-alongs? Are we getting closer or are we not there yet?
Yeah.
Ride-alongs?
Yeah,
Um,
like proof of vaccination, we can go, or? You don't need to answer that now. Think that out.
there's no hard and fast rule.
Mhm.
Vaccination is definitely one.
Yeah,
And depending on whether it's just a general interest thing or somebody is going down the path we're
right.
to facilitate.
I mean more for commission
Oh,
members.
Oh.
I'm speaking of us to
The
try and start
training.
getting our training requirements in, what, now that we're kind of seeing our way out of this COVID situation.
yeah, I don't see what the problem is. Starting to set that up. The only limitation we have is staffing.
Right,
So currently we do have the 2 new members that are in their training. That'll be done by the end of the month. So that frees up a couple of seats. But we do have a couple of practicum students starting in January. So it'll just be a matter of timing and having enough members to facilitate.
So Cora, just to bring you up to speed, there is a list of training that each new commissioner needs to go through, and Elaine hasn't gotten it done, Cam hasn't gotten it done. It's a lot of the Attorney General training that was available online hasn't been accessible to us. It's been a bit frustrating to actually meet our training requirements for Judy as Vice Chair is her position on that. But I think right along being one of them, we can probably start re-implementing and getting back to it.
And a tour of the station as well was the other one.
Thanks, Judy. Yeah. So we will pursue it, but I think we could just recreate that spreadsheet, Judy. So we're good there.
Awesome. Thank you.
So that brings us to the council report. I really appreciate your council report, Councilor Hoekstra. It's kind of nice for us to see what's going on broadly in the city to understand kind of where we fit inside as one of the wheels inside the big machine. Anything highlight that you'd like to bring to our attention?
Not necessarily, but I did just, maybe I shouldn't be reading while we're discussing, but I went through the agenda again from AUMA, this in response to the chief's question, and policing is not addressed on any of the resolutions this afternoon, no sessions. So I don't know if that speaks a little bit that AUMA is a little bit behind on that issue for municipalities, or it's just or they're lining themselves with all the discussions that you're part of, Chief. But I certainly will keep my ear to the ground in terms of what's happening provincially in that regard. But just so you know, yes, I am at AUMA. It was yesterday, today, and tomorrow. AUMA is now called Alberta Municipalities. Just 2 words, not Alberta Urban Municipalities Association. So we feel that that brand change may cause some confusion, or it's a precursor to maybe having one organization that unites counties and urban municipalities. We're not sure. But it's a good place to be. It's always good to reconnect with other councillors. There's a lot of new people here, though, too, as many councils in Alberta underwent quite significant changes this last election. We are fortunate in Lacombe, though, that we are fairly stable and a well-oiled machine. So that part's, I don't know, I shouldn't, at least I feel like we're a well-oiled machine. We work pretty good as a council. But yeah, I will learn as to what to report to you in more detail in the future. But for right now, we're kind of in that beginning stage. And I gather that the organizational meeting for the commission is in January. Is that correct, Chair Gish?
That's correct.
Okay, so then
members will join us in January. And just on what I thought I'd do is reach out to those 2 members and yourself, and maybe try to have a pre-meeting meeting just to do a brief initiation, just to help transition it in a way that makes it a little smoother. Sure. Maybe. So I'll reach out, knowing you're looking at your schedule and realizing how busy you are, but maybe we'll try to find some time. I
will make the time. So okay. Yeah, no, thank you. And that's all I have to report.
Any questions for Councilor?
No, but I agree with Chair Gish. I would like to say thank you for a great report. It was very thorough and very detailed, but I enjoyed reading it very much. Thank you.
Keep up the good work. We liked it. Elaine, you had a comment?
No, just a question for you, Chair. Does the oath of office for council apply to the oath of office for commission?
Yes. So at the same time, with the way that go ahead, Bart, you had the answer to that?
I couldn't hear her question.
So what the question was whether your oath of office as a councillor applies to your oath of office as a commissioner. And in my view, when we have new commissioners, of course, there's an oath of office that's granted, but Councillor Hoekstra is here as a representative of council. So in that sense, her oath of office is exactly that. Would you agree?
Yes, I would say so, but unless there's some unique parts to your oath of office, I don't know the wording. No. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so as we're committed to do the work of the city council, we're committed to do the work of the commission when we're appointed to it. Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah.
Okay, we are done reports. Anything else on reports, questions, follow-up? I would accept a motion to accept reports as presented. Cam Henstone, thank you very much. Oh, you got your name on the meeting. Everybody all in favor, show of hands. Unanimously carried.
It's not just name on the minutes, it's name and participation medal.
Exactly. Participation medal. All right, so that brings us to old business, which is the Police Act, Section 37-2 policy update. So just old business in that it was quickly introduced at the last meeting that on review of policy manual and review of trying to improve our service, that we wanted to make sure that our policy manual had a lot more detail or a little bit more clarity on the commissioner's ability under Section 37 of the Police Act to actually dismiss an officer. And I know that my summaries aren't quite usually what the chief would like to see as a summary, so I'll let you go ahead. Elaine, you have a question first. Go.
Thanks, Chair. So we have a few examples of non-disciplinary.
So that's when we were having our earlier discussion on disciplinary, under the current state of the Police Act, it's been problematic because the way the Police Act is outlined, everything has to go through a disciplinary process. And typically, disciplinary applies to offenses under the Act. Performance is not addressed under the Act or how to deal with that. So every employer outside of policing has the ability to deal with performance issues for their employees. So if you were incapable or your competence is lacking in report writing, say you can't follow processes or policy or choose not to. So continually you create a court package, and because of administrative errors, we can't proceed with those charged. It's not that you're committing an offense, but we have to fit it into this slot that now it's neglect of duty instead of dealing with the issue itself. And we provide remedial training in ticket writing or report writing or computer skills or investigative abilities that you're just not doing what you're supposed to, or there's certain expectations that when you come to work, you're going to quote and serve the public, but you're sitting at your desk or not performing your function. To me, that's a performance issue, not a statutory investigation. So the only way to deal with performance issues outside of the Police Act and that formal disciplinary process is through Section 37-2. So the service could deal with those problems, but when it gets to a tipping point that somebody is just not doing their job, outside of charging them formally under the Police Act, holding a hearing and having multiple levels of appeals through the Law Enforcement Review Board, Alberta Court of Appeal, Alberta Queen's Bench. 37-2 is the only way that the Commission can deal with poor employees and avoid that whole complicated, expensive disciplinary process that we have. So,
that you're forced to maneuver,
maneuver through
into when it's not really appropriately.
And it doesn't give us the ability to address performance issues for the benefit of the employee either. So Section 37-2 is really the final stage. That it's not, from my perspective, that's not where the police service's focus should be, is how do we get to the end? But it does complete that path as far as dealing with performance issues. And if there's compliance or people just aren't able to perform in the function they were hired to do, then it gives us another option as far as dealing with the situation.
So then as like background, it came that several of the commissions in the province are taking a look at this and taking a look at their policies. And so it just led us to take a look at our policy just being very, very brief. So if our commission was ever presented with a section 7037, we didn't even have a procedure in place. And so the amendment is proposing that there's at least a fair procedure that we can confirm and feel confident in our actions, that we followed the natural justice principles of making sure that someone's been heard, that when we're acting in that situation, that we got all the information that we need to make a proper decision in a way that is fair to the officer in charge, the officer in question as well. With that. That's okay.
And in the whole Police Act review, this is something that all police services and many commissions have been asking for changes to just have the ability to deal with performance, because the current system is archaic and draconian. Quite simply, it comes from old military law, very formal process, but in a civilian environment, it's not fair. It's not in alignment with regular business practices.
So with the draft that you have in front of you, we were using the source from the Edmonton Police Commission. And of course, I had to put my little fingers on it and I legaled it on up. And the chief said, well, no, it doesn't actually have to be completely legaled up. That it is meant to be an oral hearing, just so that there's that offer of being, to make sure that someone feels that they're being heard. And making sure that we have all the information that we need. So of course, I'm a big proponent of let's set deadlines, let's make sure there's nothing open-ended, let's have a mechanical system so that we know that we know what we're doing.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Chair. So I've read through this several times, right? And it reminds me so much of the conduct proceedings that the Alberta Teachers Association has, right? I'm wondering about G and whether or not there needs to be or ought to be a timeline there. So after review of the written submissions, following an in-person hearing, the commission shall decide whether or not to terminate the services. So for example, we're saying that the timeline for any written submission or request for in-person hearing shall be no less than 15 days, but no more than 30 days after receipt of the correspondence, which is delivered as a personal service by sealed envelope, right? So there's
yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. So what would you suggest as a fair timeline? Like 15 days.
15, no less than 15, no more than 30. Is that
In this
workable?
case, probably within 15 days is fine, or within 30 would be the idea, because we might have an answer that we're able to give immediately, or we might need to still meet several times to deliberate.
Great.
So if we did, that's why I think your feedback is, I think is correct.
So if we do 60 days with the association from receiver
Okay.
and report.
Okay.
So 15 days, I think, in this process, because it's more in person and.
Or 30, just in case, if we really have to deliberate and try to find a time for us to do it. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, even if, let's say this comes up in August when we wouldn't meet, that gives us time to, if people are on holidays or somewhere in there, that gives us some flexibility
Yeah.
to
Okay.
get in there.
And I think 30 days is in alignment with, we do look at the police outside process. It's like those timelines, but also at the expiry of the 30 days, we would just have to provide some notice as to the reason.
Okay.
And then H, there's no opportunity for appeal to the decision. That's in our purview to do that, okay? Is that?
And that's where
opposite to-
I was going off on that next stage, and his chief's like, no. Because we're not mandated, it's be just like me letting an employee go and.
Yeah.
There's the regular civil procedure process.
Right.
The avenue that an individual could take after commission dealing with it would be to pursue it civil.
So I'll let everyone keep reading, but essentially what the amendment that you're proposing would be that at the end of G, that within 30 days, and then I could use the same language unless the chair determines circumstances warrant an extension, which will not be more than a further 30 days.
I think just after the word writing within 30 days.
Okay. What about the extension concept?
The extension, what do you mean?
So if there is a circumstance that requires us to extend it,
I would just say put 30 days. An affected officer of its decision within 30 days, then you've got your 15 to 30.
I think too that whole idea of, well, what about August? The camera has raised. That there is within the amendment and within the policy capacity to manipulate that to avoid August.
Yeah.
Because of when you send things out.
Could you have a claim which similar to the timeline for any written decision, formal decision? You within 30 days, and as the chair determines circumstances warrant an extension, which shall not be more than additional 30 days.
it could very well be that we're seeking legal advice too. Goodness knows lawyers don't respond that quickly. So. I think that we should do a combination of exactly that 30 days, but just leave that little bit of gray area. The chair determines an extension
Yeah, I like
to
that
a
part.
maximum of 30
I don't
days.
think we need
Okay,
15 there.
no, just within 30 days. Extension with discretion, but no more than 30 days. Okay.
And does the extension then chair need to be communicated to the officer?
All parties.
Yeah, we can add that communication. So what I can do with that then is just fire those amendments in and put the final to the December meeting. It's not a rush to do this, and it does give everyone else a chance to, having talked about it, to contemplate anything else. So I'll put that together, Jen, and give it to you for the agenda with track changes so you can see what.
Judy.
Judy.
Judy's-
Yeah.
Judy, there you go.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, your video's frozen, but I think your audio is working. But when you first started with the commission, prior to me coming on as chief, as well as an inspector, were you on the commission when there was a 37-2 proceeding that was initiated?
I don't remember that actually.
I think you were just coming on when it was finishing up, Judy. We've had that
Yeah,
conversation. I think you were
that's
just
right.
coming on.
This last, I was here for I've been here for 5 years, or like this was the extension to make it 6. So I've been on here 6 years.
Okay, yeah, so it had been just, one of the issues that was identified during that particular circumstance for that member was that the chief or the service wasn't conducting regular performance appraisals and assessment. The commission was going to move forward with the dismissal. That's came to alternate resolution. But the strong message from the commission at the time is if you're going to proceed, you better have the documentation to support it. So we've definitely been very cognizant of that as a service for conducting many more assessments than just annual assessments. But we're doing the annual assessments consistently. But we're also adding to that as well. So the documentation piece is something that was identified, was noted, but is a very important part of that. And then this kind of follow up too with a defined process and the requirements to get to that end result potentially. But I think the process has to be clearly defined to utilize this method effectively. And I think that's what all the services are looking at, that somehow you need a performance mechanism to deal with performance problems.
Yes, and I think it's important with any of the process that we had previously. Something that I highly respect and appreciate is Chair Gish's communication to us as the rest of the commissioners with regards to any information, because that was lacking a bit previously, but this is important, I think, and I think as a policy that should be put in where the chair communicates any of the process that has to be given to performance or added.
All right. Any other thoughts on that? I'm a habitual multitasker as well, so I'm now listening and typing. So next on our list is.
Before we move on to
Yeah.
new business, did we miss the line acknowledgement this morning?
Yes.
Okay, and I just bring it up in old business because we did, so we maybe, Jen, if Jen just puts it on agenda as number 2 going forward, then we would never miss it again.
Thank you. I totally forgot
Yeah,
about
no worries.
that acknowledgement.
Yeah, but if we just have it on the agenda, then we won't miss it.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I know?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good rest of your birthday week.
Cross that off the list of things.
I totally forgot about that.
I should
On a break, we can acknowledge briefly that we are currently in Treaty 6, and we appreciate to acknowledge and recognize it. Thank you. All right. Geez, that was important to me too. All right.
Thank you all.
See you, Brad.
See you around.
See you, Brad. Enjoy the heat.
Thanks.
Okay, new business, 7.1 was appointment of commission members. I think we did address that last meeting. Do you have something?
Before we move on,
Okay.
I actually had a question, and Councilor Hoopser can help us with this, but as far as the land acknowledgement goes, the city is looking at a different process for acknowledgement. But I'm wondering if that process is implemented by the city when we do our meetings in council chambers. Do we follow that process or do our own acknowledgement? And I don't know if that's a question for you, Cora, or whether it's a question in general that we need to have researched, but just something to think of now. I think our next meeting is still here, but as we move back to City Hall, whether that acknowledgement process will change.
Well, I think it's fair that our acknowledgement process might evolve as.
I would say we would align with the city's acknowledgement process once they instate it.
Yeah.
Put it in place.
Okay.
And I, just to speak to that a moment, it is still like we have a physical piece of art, if you will, that acknowledges the land we are on, but it won't necessarily be included in each as a statement as part of each meeting, is my understanding going forward. But we had an interesting experience here at AUMA yesterday that during our meeting where we had all our presentations from our speeches from dignitaries, every single one of them made an acknowledgement, and we found that to be unusual as well. So I think the whole commitment to doing this and how to do it is in flux, like because it didn't seem, I say this carefully, it didn't seem appropriate to have every speaker also say it at an event. So yeah, we have to figure out a way to just do this professionally and with the care that we want it to be done. So, but for now, that piece of art is in the city hall, but not in chambers.
So is the piece of art, is that intended to replace an acknowledgement by the city?
I couldn't answer that question. I think that would be a question for council if that's what their decision is.
And I would like to just wait to speak to that if that's all right down the road.
I don't think there's anything decided at city council yet at this point, so.
So I would think, Chair, that the commission is the commission and the decisions that the commission makes and the way in which the commission conducts itself is maybe not identical to every organization within the city.
And I wouldn't argue that point either. And so I think we're just pointing out that this whole process is meant to be meaningful.
Yeah.
And the whole process will fluctuate as time goes on. And we have a better understanding of whether we're being respectful and meaningful with this or not.
And I think that's the point I want to make is we want to do what's right. We want to be consistent and it needs to be genuine. So we're not just doing these things for the sake of doing them.
By rote.
We create or follow a process, whatever that may be, but we're consistent and it remains genuine. It isn't just a procedural matter that has no substance to it.
However, when it gets to rote, we're in a good spot. So you say we don't want to do it by rote. We do want to get to the spot where it is by rote, that every meeting that anyone has in this province recognizes the lands that we're on. I think it needs to get to rote, just like the Canadian flag needs to, singing "O Canada," it needs to be rote in people's minds. That's just a passionate thing.
And you and I may be just using different connotations.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I want rote.
Yeah, that you want it to be something that's just so
Meaningfully
great.
rote, yes. So trained and
Internalized.
internalized in every person in this province.
That it's something that you constantly think of, right? It's internalized. It's not something that has to be put in front of you.
When it's not done at a meeting now, I think it's something we've missed. Like at any meeting I attend provincially, if it's not done, it's like, oops, they've made a mistake, right? That's how I see it now.
Okay, new business. We have 7.1 appointment of commission members. So again, I think I'm missing my timing. We did have an official appointment from the mayor. So we have 2 members joining us officially in January. We have Ken Kulak who's a resume that we've seen, so we're excited to have him involved. He does have some RCMP background, which is going to be very informative. And we have another gentleman named John Soderberg, who is a longtime Lacombe resident and has some administrative and practical experience through Wolf Creek, actually, but the maintenance and management side. And Cam is giving me a smile.
He was my very first boss.
Was he your very first boss?
Yeah.
Well, I hope
He
he
thought he
didn't.
was my boss for a long time.
He thought he was. Okay. So we're excited to have that, the additions, and of course, we're very appreciative of the work that we've had from Edie McKinley and Judy Luke as well. So it's part of keeping this commission fresh is the evolution of it. Human resource plan is intact until the end of 2023. We have it on new business and in our agenda package just to keep it fresh for us. And Chief, did you want to address anything particular for us to pay attention to and be cognizant of?
We're supposed to review it annually. For today, this is basically the annual review of the plan. The plan was adjusted in 2021 to go from 21 to 2023. And I'd recommend that potentially once we get a new strategic plan, we do adjust it as well. But to date, we have met all our objectives as far as the human resource plan has, as it was presented. We did implement a traffic services constable position in 2021, so that was completed. This comment to alert was done in 2020, but backfilling that position in 2021 locally was completed. Those were the two major changes within this plan throughout the 3 years. We don't have any increases to strength, authorized strength identified. So budget-wise, the only impacts to the budget as far as human resources go are those incremental or promoted increases for our membership. And with 2022 was actually when we were going to promote a staff sergeant, have that within our ranks. Because of the many human resource issues and a lot of work there was this year in managing the pandemic and those variables, our resources and other changes that implemented that staff sergeant position effective for October, and that provides some positional authority and some oversight to the sergeants. So it kind of completes the structure and it creates a better flow. So far that change has been going well.
Can I ask one quick question on the staff sergeant position? Because this will come up with whoever does the interviews when we do the chief's evaluation. Just the process in hiring staff sergeant, was it an open competition internally? And then from there, it was just an internal open competition? Because
of the collective agreement?
Yeah.
The staff sergeant is still covered under the collective agreement.
Okay.
He's a non-commissioned officer. Mm-hmm. So under the Police Act, he has to be part of the association.
Right.
So, and we have to follow all of the terms and conditions of the collective agreement. So the collective agreement actually doesn't define process, but within our policy, we do have a process for the staff sergeant position, sergeant's promotions, and actually specialized sections. So that is all there. There is a scoring process, and actually because of this being a new position, I had Chair Gish on the interview.
And that's a good point.
To bring some independent.
Yeah, that's really important for if Judy and I, for example, are the ones who do the interviews, because it's a new position. I'm sure it'll be a topic of conversation in the future when we get to that. So knowing the process will be really a good reminder to us when those questions come to us on
Yep.
You know, was the process fair? Did they, you know, those types of things that can kind of come up for some of the disgruntled, perhaps, or the non-disgruntled who, you know, you get that on a staff when you hire internally, right? So.
If you get 4 applicants, there's gonna be
Absolutely,
not disgruntled and
always,
three
and that's so
disgruntled.
difficult, it's difficult in any organization.
But we
Absolutely.
do, and actually in this process, because there was some, I did get some verbal feedback, but I also outlined the grievance process, which nobody followed through with because there's timelines on that process that are identified. And then also, we haven't finalized the sergeant process, but those that didn't meet the cutoff grade have been notified of that. And we also notified them of the grievance process. So they're given the opportunity to see their scores, not anybody else, but see their own scores, to have discussion about that, but also they have a grievance opportunity.
Excellent, great.
And so some of that is defined through the collective agreement and some of it's defined through internal policies. But as far as the scoring and process, that process is much more fulsome than the collective agreement.
Well, it's just good note to self, when we get into those interviews in the next go around, we may just want to refresh our understanding of that process. Because we may get, you know, we don't answer direct questions, but if we start to see a theme, then we can then have a better background on that theme, right?
Well, and I think because we're holding to those policies and every time we introduce them,
Yes,
that's still not the norm for some of our
yes,
folks. So I think that whole process is going to be completely different. I don't know what to expect, but I've ruffled a lot of feathers by
so this was
moving
a timely
forward with this
question,
process.
because I'm sure there was some feathers ruffled.
But what has been nice is we have a process to follow back on.
That's exactly
And
my
that
point.
is something that I'm very have very strong opinions on, but I also see the benefits without that process, that structure. You leave yourself open for
Absolutely.
criticism and a lot of influence. So I've recently heard that some decisions are made on an old boys club. Said, well, I think we left that club behind years ago. So,
Yeah.
If you want to agree with, here's the number to the chair. So I really appreciate your comments. And any of that information is available. So if you want to see the scoring
Rubric or
platform,
whatever. Yeah, be good.
then we have it. Even the eligibility to put in is there. And even for some of the positions like the sergeant's position, we implemented a TA, temporary acting sergeant training process a while back that we apply, and you have to have that to even win or be promotable, and we got that written into the collective agreement. So some of the stuff has been evolving through the last couple of collective agreements. And the one thing about the staff sergeant position is at some point in time, I think the goal is to change that to an inspector's position, because the inspector's position is outside of the collective agreement, which for me is an asset. And even when you're dealing with police service matters, where a member gets representation from a member of the association, but might be investigated by a member of the association, it creates some problems, but we don't want to promote before we have the competency base to justify that.
Okay, thank you.
Just a quick question, because what is the grievance process? So everything goes through there, or
So
just out of curiosity?
for promotion,
Yeah, let's say someone that didn't get the staff position had a grievance to file because what?
so the grievance process for promotion under the collective agreement would be the member would have to file a grievance to me. Then I would have to justify the decision and make a respond to the grievance. obviously, if I'm making a selection on a promotion process, that's part of the problem with a smaller organization is we don't have multiple layers to.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, on a promotion, I get the final decision based on the scores, the information I have. So a grievance back to me, obviously, I'm going to stick to probably my initial decision, unless there's additional information that's brought forward, but it would come through me. Once I respond to a decision, then within, I think it's within 30 days, will hold me to the timelines on this. They can appeal that decision to the commission.
Oh, okay.
So then the commission would hear that grievance. And with that grievance, the member has the ability to have representation in the association executive during that process.
Okay.
So on that note, what's our policy for hearing a grievance?
Jen?
Is it in the binder?
So this is different than a police act complaint like this. The timelines are different for this type of grievance than a citizen complaint process.
Yeah,
If
more
it's
of
not
an-
in there, then I guess that's.
We better
well,
update our policy manual.
Productive meeting.
Excellent.
Sounds like more work for me.
So
Do you have an idea?
we can check into that.
Okay, we'll check
In
into
the
that to make
commission
sure
policy?
we've got that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
honestly
commission
don't know.
policies,
I've
I'm really not seeing anything.
I have
No.
never gone to the commission policy for that. I always go to the collective agreement. So it might be as simple as referring to the collective agreement process because that's,
It might be there. Put that on note.
Would you mind for next meeting? Well, yeah, for next meeting, just to have it in the agenda package for discussion is what does our grievance policy say? And maybe attach a copy of the excerpt from collective agreement as well, just so that we can. We do have our policy manual review that starts in January, so we could probably delay it till January, but have that. We need a reminder that that particular issue needs to be looked at. Okay.
and there's not a lot of content to it. It's more the timeline.
Right.
Oh,
And all of a sudden, but taking a look at our section
These things
37
happen for a reason.
policies.
Conversation.
Yeah, they're excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, unless anything else on our public agenda, we do have in-camera items to discuss. Does anyone need a bio break before we go or just as we go in camera? Let's do that. So what we could probably do is make a motion to go in camera at this point so that the city has time to come off live screening. Diane, do you have any comments before we make that motion?
No, nothing from me. Thank you very much. I will take my leave now.
Yeah,
Okay.
being here.
Thank you.
Everybody has a copy of the collective agreement in their binder.
Yeah.
I think this is an opportune time to, when you're looking at the grievance procedures, look through the entirety of it because like I have that document open on my desk
I bet you do.
probably as we speak.
4 to 5 days.
I don't think it gets closed very often.
I got halfway through the binder in the police act, looking at all the numbers in the police act. I was like,
Oh,
I need a computer after.
But we also have
So,
the,
Well, and anything that's going to be agreeable by a member is going to be as a result of that collective.
Yes.
So that's kind of the holy grail.
is
Is
when
if
you're
we don't
back in
follow
December or early January, like,
what's
we
in
can
there,
go through
then they can
I don't think
agree
so.
back to this body.
the
Gotcha.
main schedule, we need
So-
to bring
so
back our plan.
something outside the
So
collective
let's,
agreement, then it can come back.
okay, let's take a brief break. Would you make that motion that you're trying to make there, Elaine? Let's move into camera at 10:05, take a 11:05 and take a Can't read my watch.
5 minutes.
Me and my children
11:15.
can't read or either much.
Reconvene.
11:15, sounds good, thank you.